Taranga, Leela, is a cyclopean extraterrestrial, so we are led to believe, and she believes, until later on when we discover she is actually the least mutated sewer mutant ever known, and therefore was abandoned by her parents on the surface so she could have something like a normal life. Parents willing to give away their child in the hopes that their child can have a life. In a world where every type of extraterrestrial is welcome, where every type of robot, even ones dedicated to hedonism, irrationally exist. But Taranga Leela's parents have to abandon her to give her a shot because they are horribly mutated beings that are considered genetically impure and not allowed above the surface, except occasionally with a special pass that allows them out of their ghetto from the government. This is terribly tragic stuff. When finally she meets her parents and discovers her origin, there is shame. There's the overcoming of stigma. Her parents cannot even visit her without a special pass. She, who was ostracized for being a cyclopean, even when she was thought an alien, again in a world otherwise filled with aliens, cephalopods, goo monsters, and slimy blobs. Yet nevertheless, the tragedy of Taranga Leela is that she is not accepted, she is ostracized, she's treated poorly, and the only person that really seems to care about her in the way that she would want or hope is the guy that she rejects, Fry, the guy from the past who's been frozen in time. All of his loved ones are now gone and dead. Everything that he ever knew has passed away. We get the flashbacks to his family that he never felt close enough to his brother that he was alienated from, to the grave of his nephew who bore his name that he desecrated trying to get back something he thought was stolen from him. A cephalopod alien, Dr. Zoidberg, ostracized by his people, unable to mate, never to pass on his genetic material, trapped on Earth in a dead-end job with no respect, not making enough income, and literally eating out of dumpsters. The elderly professor who is mocked and ridiculed by his peers, whose better days are behind him and he's in his golden years. The robot who we meet and wants to commit suicide the first moment we meet him. Bender the robot, who has all of this potential ability as an artificial entity, perhaps an artificial life form. It's not clear. He sure seems sentient, and yet he finds no meaning in life until he meets up with Fry, and he still fritters away his existence, having apparently magnified all of our normal human foibles and sins into an outrageous degree of his smoking and his drinking and his hanging out with loose women, stealing stuff, gambling, you name it. Bender does it. His name says it all. The Bender. He's on a perpetual bender. Obviously, that's the joke, not that he's actually a bending robot. These are just some of the characters in Futurama, which of course is a comedy, right? I wanted to start off that way because I've been trying a couple ways to approach this. I just got done binging the first 5 seasons of Futurama from the Fox network. I consider that to be classic Futurama. In this day and age of different incarnations of franchises, we kind of got to do this. I was happy when it was revived on the Comedy Channel on cable, and those were good. They were hit and miss. Some were better than others. And now I hear Disney is digging it up like Fry's long-dead nephew, and they're going to regurgitate it into more crap splattered on our screen like they've done with everything that they've rebooted or soft rebooted. So I went back and I watched the first 5 seasons, the classic, vintage. It's hard for people born later to understand and appreciate the difference in that culture between binging things as they're released, watching them online in a row, or waiting for them to come out a week at a time through part of the year, watching the reruns on the off season, how it became part of your life for several years. This is how Star Trek becomes a phenomenon. It's how everything in the 80s, it's why Knight Rider, the A-Team, G.I. Joe, Transformers, these were things that stayed with us. They aired over a couple of years of those formative years of our lives. We didn't just binge it and get on to the next thing. Futurama was one of those last ones for me. When it was revived, it was in the cable format, which was a little bit different, and how quickly we went to streaming by the time that had happened. And now everything's dealt with differently. And I'm not criticizing those who do it. I do it. New shows drop. I watch all of Cobra Kai in like a day and a half. You can't stop. I mean, you want to see what happens next, and it's there. But it has changed the entire culture of how we interact with entertainment. The classic Futurama, it was created by the creator of The Simpsons. When The Simpsons was still good, Simpsons was popular from the beginning, but in hindsight, it didn't really reach its peak till later. Futurama was amazing. It does get kind of hit and miss the last few seasons, but what a phenomenal science fiction franchise, even though it's funny. And I mean, these days when I can be made to laugh out loud, that's something, because the newer stuff just mostly doesn't do that. When I do reviews, I mention that. If I watch something that gives me that gift, I want to talk about it. A lot of Futurama will still make me laugh out loud, even though it's not a surprise anymore. And that's an incredible gift. But also, I wanted to bring it up because of the science fiction franchise, because of the whole science fiction concept that it deals with. It isn't just humorous as a farce intended to be humorous. It gives us a universe in which very serious and real serious science fiction could be set if it wasn't a comedy. It does a great job of what we now call universe building. There's a whole cosmos from we meet it a little bit at a time after Fry unthaws in the future. We get to see the world. We finally get to see the moon. They travel to other planets, weird alien worlds. We get the recurring characters, lure of Omicron Persei 8. We get the Poplars. We have the interaction with this science fiction universe to a degree that we get some of the history of it, and we get how we got from here to there, even when some of it's glossed over in a way that's humorous. When we see out the window when he's frozen, different types of invasions and the return to a medieval period and all of that. But what a phenomenal job of getting the details right. Okay, I always pick on it, but look what they've done with Star Trek. You've got people being paid more money than I'll ever see to write this Kurtzman Star Trek who don't know that Trill symbionts can't be in humans because they didn't bother to look it up. Futurama was a cartoon and intended to be funny, and yet there's a continuity to it. There's a universe that it's built in that is really some spectacular science fiction. You could totally do a very serious, gritty version of that, except that now everything's doing the serious, gritty version of everything post Watchmen and other franchises, as I always talk about. You wouldn't need to do that. It would just not be the thing. But you could, because the universe that you're given is so complex. Everything geographically lays out. And again, the creator of The Simpsons, very much what Matt Groening did with Springfield, where you learned the comic book shop, the church, you learned the different locations, and you've got this huge cast by the end. And this is what Futurama does. Complex, thought out, and very well done. We get a believable, in a science fiction context, a believable sort of technology for flying around. We get everything contextualized in a way that really is a lot more realistic, though it's meant to be funny. They're delivery people, they're dropping off packages, like everything in the future. The more things change, the more they stay the same. The human race has all the same flaws, all the same foibles and problems. We've expanded those out. The robots are a fascinating bit of science fiction. I'm always saying that because I'm a Trekker. I overuse that word, and it's not logical. But when you think about how the robots in Futurama mimic human behavior, are they sentient? The smoking, the drinking, the carrying on, being built for various functions. And yet, there seems to be, my suspicion is, my fan theory, they are sentient. And like the Cylons in Battlestar Galactica, that potentially makes them a severe threat. And the wisdom of the Earth government to create a religion for the robot. See, when you're self-aware and you ask, who am I? Why am I here? What is the nature of the cosmos? You really need some eternal direction, an eternal sense of where you are in this vast cosmos to allow you to function. Human civilizations are not built without religion. They just aren't. There's always something. Plato's Republic, he goes out of his way to say, oh, the gods is all hooey. We'll build a republic without religion. And then what does he do by the end? He invents a religion. Because without it, there's no ultimate answer to the question, why should I obey the law? Why should I not just see what I can get away with? The robots have a religion. They have more than one. They were smart enough also to give them religions that were in competition with one another so that they were never too certain of any one of them to also become a problem through fundamentalism. We find robot Judaism. We have robot, some sort of vaguely Christian with the preacher bot. We have different sort of things represented in the alien religions. But the robots, it seems that they were given religions to deal with their sentience. Even converting the old amusement park into a robot hell. Of course, we don't see robot heaven because heaven can be whatever we imagine. We're not sure it's beyond this realm. But to make sure that there was real punishment in the here and now for robots to keep them in line, we get a robot devil and a robot hell. You might even say robot devil is a brilliant idea because he goes around tempting robots to do wrong. He's actually challenging their sentience, their morality in view of their sentience, so that they can, it's literally what we would legally call entrapment, but maybe you want to do that to prevent problems with your robots. So this is probably me being a nerd overthinking it, but there's a lot of brilliant stuff like this about human relationships, the tragedies that come with human suffering in this science fiction setting, the striving to do better. The robots are a fascinating shtick, the technology. When Kif gets pregnant with Amy's kids, although they're actually Leela's DNA, that whole weird thing where he gives birth into a pond, and despite the fact that it's clearly intended to be a little bit gross and to be funny and awkward because of the relationships, yet you can't hide the fact that there's a brilliant bit of science fiction in there worthy of anything that they tried to do on Star Trek. I mean, imagine this. We would see after this time when, the human male becomes pregnant on Star Trek Enterprise, Kif is presumably a male of his species, but he gets pregnant. He delivers I don't know, are they what would you call them? Like tadpoles? He delivered the life cycle of this creature life form thing that he is, and I forget the name of his planet, but Clan Croker going back to the swamp, begetting the young, having a priestess there. That is some of the cool, to find something from the pond like that and humanoidize it, and that is what Kif has been, like the way he sticks to the ceiling like a tree frog or whatever. That is some incredible science fiction if you do what I do as a nerd and you overanalyze it. That's incredible. I'm sure that there were writers on Star Trek that could have thought up something like that, but could they have depicted it? I mean, good Lord, look what they did with Voyager and the amphibian kids in the Delta Quadrant. We won't even remember that episode, but be that as it may. The way that you're able to draw it in the animation and you're able to produce it and you get the gob of gook, and it's okay to be like, oh, that's gross because it's a comedy, and yet Futurama is some of the best science fiction around. So I could go on all day, but I just wanted to do a little thing about Futurama and my love for it before it's regurgitated and spat up all over the screen by Disney, like everything else that we've loved that they've bought up. But be that as it may, let me know your thoughts. Am I overthinking it, overanalyzing it, and insane just because I'm in a Captain Kirk bathrobe? Come on, man. Or am I onto something? Is it really as brilliant as I think it is? Let me know what you think below, and we'll see you next time.